this going? How does it work here?
So the question itself shows that you would like to be a part of a doctoral school which doesn't demand too much from you, right?
But I have finished my PhD,
yeah.
so I'm on the safe side.
Okay.
But yeah, I just wanted to know the comments, how the society in this PhD field works. Does it work in favor of the student?
For you to shift from one doctoral?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Well, you can change doctoral programs, but that kind of shopping is not really recommended, and if you do, it needs to be on scientific or academic terms. At the moment, still, it's the faculty that grants the degree.
Exactly.
So you would, in fact, have to change faculties, which means that you would, in fact, have to reapply. Yes, basically, yes. As to the question whether you're a student or an employee, that comes back to the funding. If we require all the PhD students to have funding, well, yes, and actually be employed at the university, then of course they are all employees. If you do not require that, then some of them are students and employees, some of them are only students, which means that there are different types of rights and obligations regarding that role. I admit it's an intricate position, and sometimes the roles are, especially as it comes to a conflict, they might be not go together so well, and that's really something that we do need to work on. But the fact is that you're both. You can't get rid of that. And what's so bad about being a student? I think it's a good thing to keep on learning.
There were some discussions regarding the funding of the PhDs, and I'm sure from a university point of view, the most desirable situation would be that all our PhD students would be employees. But unfortunately, it's not possible at the moment. The University of Helsinki has about 5,000 PhD students at the moment, so it's quite a huge amount of people. And unfortunately, less than 8% of those are funded by the university funding with so-called graduate school doctoral program funding. So it's a very, very minor part of that. So it's a tough situation. And we discussed very much with foundations that they would be the ones that would also give their funding as salaries, so that all of those PhD students that are doing their work at the university would be financed as employees. But for example, foundations are not ready to do that, except the Science Foundation of Helsinki, but all the others prefer to give their grants. So it's one of the problems we have at the moment. But unfortunately, I'm pretty sure that there won't be that kind of day that all the PhD students at the University of Helsinki would be financed by university funding. We always need some kind of project funding there as well. It would be a very nice thing, so that all these kind of activities should be financed by university funding, which would mean at the same time project funding would be allocated for the postdocs, which would be a very nice thing, and at the end we should have quite a lot of less PhD students than we have at the moment, because we have just too many of them. And it's also one of the reasons why when we are looking at the study times of PhDs, they are very long. And part of that is because of the part-time students. So many of our students are part-time students. And finally, but not least, one comment regarding the study times. I suppose that quite many of you know that at the moment we have limits for the study times for bachelor's and master's, especially masters. And there have been a couple of initiatives prepared for the Ministry of Education regarding the limit of PhD study times as well. But so far, it's a tricky thing, and it's very, very, very difficult to decide on this kind of big issue at the ministry. So at least for now, we have to look for what kind of movements the ministry will make.
So this is a very relevant point, and points that I put down in my document regarding the time. We will come back to that. We'll first discuss the funding related issues. It's possible for a PI, it's not that the PI wants the PhD students to suffer, it's possible for the PI to hire a PhD student for 1 year, promising that the money might come the next year without guaranteeing anything. The PhD student takes up that opportunity in this country, in this whole country. Might get the funding after 1 year, might not get the funding after 1 year. This happens because of the first take or the first existence of this system where you are able to give 1 year funding to an XYZ person who has now been, now the rules have been defined of who can be, you have to make the information public of who you can hire. But it's still possible that your boss gives you your future boss gives you 1 year of funding, saying that you might get an extension of it or not. And after, say for example, 2nd year of your PhD, money just runs out. Maybe it's not the fault of the boss. Let's assume that he or she is trying his best or her best to get you through the PhD process. And then you are stuck in the middle of trying to arrange funding for yourself. You're behind your computer trying to apply for grants instead of doing your research. Yes, please.
Very good. Maybe, I would like to...
It's not on. It's not on.
I can shout.
Yeah, I'd like to sort of present a provocative question, both to students and then also to our administrators. What do you see as the main responsibility of the supervisor? Is that to provide high quality education or financial support?
Yes, please. We have two comments.
I have the mic, so
I think I'm sure that people think, oh, okay, so the question is very clear, but if we just heard what students were thinking, and they find it very strange if the supervisor is not able to support them, as if that is the primary role, whereas I'm sure the university doesn't see it that way, but I think this is the big dilemma.
yeah. So I think here the question is, why are we all sitting here? We are here, or most of us are here because we are interested in doing science, and this is true for the PIs, and this is also true for most of the students. So everybody wants to do this, and if we make rules, which some of you seem to be wanting, we would 3/4 of the room could walk out. So in a way, the high number is because we all try to scrape up everything that we can and enable people to do science. And so this comes back to the point of why are these bosses saying that I can only guarantee 1 year is because that's all they have. They don't have the guarantees. And so in a way, if we go to much stricter rules and having requirements that everybody has to have a salary for 4 years before they do it, there's going to be a lot less PhD students, and that's kind of the dilemma.
But that's what they're trying as well, very PhD students in the future.
So in a way, this is a question to the students. Is that what the students want? So if that's the case, as you know, as you just heard, there's still about 6% of applicants are getting funding. So that means that there's out of every funded position, there's 19 other people who want it. So that is giving an impression that lots of students are interested in the business anyway. So I completely sympathize a lot with these thoughts. But at the same time, I'm just trying to explain it from the point of view of if we want to do research, which is at the bottom of this. We're all just trying to figure out ways in which to do this. Then coming back to the PI's main job in a PhD student, and coming back to the previous comments as well, that I think that it's a very valid point that having a very clearly defined job at the beginning of a PhD is important and is crucial. And I agree that a timeline needs to be set. That is the reason why lots of elements have been placed into the doctoral training, such as thesis committees that we heard about. They meet every year and at every of those meetings. So that's the point, to put those timelines and see if the goals have been met and readjust if you need to. And so there's a lot of elements. So if this is not happening, that's because these instruments that are already there are not taken seriously. And I think that there we have a little bit of to look in the mirror, because I feel that some of the both the supervisors as well as the students are not taking these seriously, and this is so I think that we just have to believe in the system also a little bit and take them seriously. For instance, the students often turns out that there's big problems that are not discussed at these committee meetings, and this is something that is kind of telling that there's a problem.
One of the problems in thesis committee meeting is there is nobody chairing the event, and it's not clear who chairs the event in many thesis committee meetings. So nobody knows who should start the conversation, nobody knows what issues to pick out, and nobody knows, sorry? It's, okay, so it's the student, for those of you who didn't know. But it was a confusion among many other people who are probably not a part of the doctoral program.
Okay, as a pediatric pathologist, I must say that the life is insecure, always, and so is PhD, so that certain level of insecurity is not bad. But there is an element that we haven't discussed very clearly, is that we have super scientists in this university, but they are lousy supervisors. And that's why we have right now initiated the training of the supervisors as well. And that might help a little bit, so that they are really trained to guide the students through the process. And the first course was organized right now, and it was filled in a few days. And I was really happy of it, because it shows that the supervisors also show the interest to improve their own findings.
Yeah, there's a comment.
Yeah, there was so many comments in between already, but I was just addressing this question about how much PhDs we want to have, because of course this is the current situation that we have now, but in the long term we should also think that is it productive to have this many PhDs and then they cannot have a job in the academia? Or is it good for the nation to have really highly educated people who have the skill sets that PhDs have? So it's also a more general question.
So there is an imbalance in the supply chain demand, to put it simply. We have too many PhD students, and there's a bottleneck when it comes to unemployment of highly skilled people.
Okay, I have a personal mic. I don't know how this works.
It's working.
It came out earlier in this discussion, but to me it seems like, because this is a Biotech Club event, and somebody mentioned that the scientific excellence is one way of going, and the going to industry is another way. So I wouldn't see these as alternatives, because what we need is, of course, excellent industry as well. And this is also one route for the PhD training, that you're not only limited to the academic research, but you could also very personally pursue a career in industry. We have good examples of people who have defended with publications, but the publications are not necessarily scientific papers. They could be patent applications, they could be computer programs, that kind of thing that might just be very useful for these people in the industry. But we do need talented people in the industry to run this country, not just these business card PhDs, as somebody mentioned.
Yeah.
So just continuing on Katie's point, speaking from my personal experience, that when I was starting PhD, I was looking for, okay, so what are my goals and what would I achieve from this degree? And there were a lot of already senior PhD students, that's assuming students. So senior PhD students who I went to have an advice session that, so in how many years do you think you can get to PhD and what are your outcomes? Or do you want to be in a race where you do not get a medal or do not get anything even after winning? So what is what you want after getting a PhD? So there have been always a lot of articles on Nature and science websites that academia is a PhD factory and nothing else.
You have a comment? Okay.
Yeah, as the state of Finland is still the main funding body of the universities, let me comment on the young lady's very excellent point. This is the time we have to consider what is the right balance between the student pool and the thesis defendants a year. And you are exactly right. There's lots of interesting things to do in the society, not only in industries like Erkki was talking about those, but everywhere. Look, we live in times where the one with the best narrative wins, not the one who has the best facts. And as trained PhDs, you can serve the society in so many ways. The knowledge that the decision makers in our coalition governments need is not only scientific knowledge, but it's about statistics, surveys. You can provide the decision makers with different solutions, different options. The problems we are facing are so huge that they can't be solved. We can only partially solve them. And skilled people are needed to explain to the decision makers that, look, if you for political, so party political reasons choose this option, it means that you get this solved, but everything else is left sort of as it is. And this type of profile of educated scientist is not